Chrissina Burke. I am a teaching professor in anthropology. I think teaching, like, you're always learning as a teacher. And so because you're always learning as a teacher, you get a chance to impart some of that into your classes. Every time I learn something new, I get to bring it into the classroom and talk about it. When I found anthropology is all-encompassing of everything we do. You could talk about everything. There is no limit. So if something happens in the world today, I can talk about that in an anthropology class. I can also connect it back to a past thing that happened in the world. And I think that's probably why anthropology became the thing I was teaching, because I just really wanted to teach it. That was hard. I grew up in trailer parks in southeastern Michigan and Detroit metro area. People like me don't get college degrees. People like me don't go to grad school. People like me don't get doctorates. Statistically, there's so much social capital that comes from your parents having college experiences. And mine didn't. My dad was a firefighter. He didn't necessarily have that awareness or understanding outside of being a firefighter. And so a lot of the struggles I had was mostly learning the culture of college, how to email my teachers, how to apply for financial aid. I mean, one of the biggest things that happened is I graduated with my doctorate in 2013, and I had $200,000 plus in student loan debt. I started out in college as a philosophy and art history major because I thought that's what I was most interested in. In high school, was in theater. And then I took a geology class, and geology showed me that I was much more interested in being outside. And I started out wanting to be a forensic anthropologist, like Temperance Brennan on bones, right? And wanting to study human skeletons and try to solve crimes. And then in graduate school, I got a chance to take a class on zooarchaeology and learn about animal bones and archaeology sites. And since then, because I have that specialist skill, I can work anywhere. I've worked in Belize, I've worked here in the Southwest, the Great Plains, the Great Basin. I've traveled to France to present on this, to Spain to present on this. One of the things that I work hard on doing with a lot of folks around campus is reading books. I read a bunch of books to help me think about what's the best way to create assignments, what's the best way to create discussions in class, how to run group work, how to create lectures, how to engage students in discussion. One of the kind of side tracks that I'm going right now is ungrading. We know that grading harms students, and there's limited evidence that a grade on a paper actually indicates anything about ability. And so I've been dipping my toes in that. My upper division class is ungraded. It'll get a grade at the end of the semester, but each assignment is more, did you do it? Did you revise it and resubmit it? Or did you not do it at all? Instead of, okay, well, this is 18 out of 50, and that tanks a student. And I remember that tanking, where you're just like, well, I'm wasting money, right? Especially when it's costing so much to go to school. And so I'm trying to make sure that everything I do in my classroom has a purpose. I've included career skills in my syllabi now to make sure that students know, okay, you're going to learn group work in this class. I know that is not necessarily part of the topic, but I'm also going to make sure you learn group work. So even if you're not an anthro major, you're going to get a chance to have a skill that you can take away. This is a hard one. I tell this to students all the time, and it's scary, especially when we think about what's happened to us since the pandemic. We've become very isolated as a human population, as a species in general. And the biggest piece of advice that I am constantly telling my students is communicate with your teachers. If you don't talk to your teachers, they can't help. And so the biggest piece of advice I always give is to talk to your professors, talk to the students around you. Learning is communal. It's not isolation. I've got so many hobbies, it's unbelievable at this point. I have 2 sick kids at home that live with me and my husband, a dog, a cat, 7 chickens. I turned 44 this year, so midlife. I don't know what my crisis should be. Seems like my crisis has become birding. I'm obsessed with identifying every bird that I can see. There's a lot of memes on the internet somehow you come to birding late in life, like, oh, I didn't even know the birds existed. And then all of a sudden you're like, is that a yellow-rumped warbler? Interesting. So I do a lot of birding in general, trying to find birds. And then I sew a lot. I make a lot of my clothes now because I don't know what y'all doing to the fashion, but Gen Z is like, oh, we're going to take this part of the 90s and this part of the 80s. And I'm like, no. I knit and I cook. And I honestly read a lot to improve my teaching. I find a lot of joy in that. I'm reading a lot of books right now on teaching.